What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning James Lights Out Toney once again. Get this. Hall of Fame champion says Usyk is garbage. He would be destroyed in my era. He says, man, Tyson Fury should be ashamed of himself. He is the best in the world right now. Then you got Wilder, then Joshua. To be honest with you, I don't know who else. He said, people reminded him of Usyk, the slick southpaw, focusing much more on skill and movement over power, who was previously undisputed at cruiserweight. He said, oh, he's garbage. The right time, the right moment. If he was in my era, he'd be getting destroyed left and right. Basically, everybody today, we destroy. Hell no. They wouldn't last in my era or the 70s or the 80s. Those are the words of James Toney, and let me counterpunch. Obviously, it's good to say, or it's safe to say, that James Toney don't like Oleksandr Usyk. He just doesn't like the guy. I think that, you know, you can't help what era you're in. But to really compare James Toney to Oleksandr Usyk. James Toney was once a cruiserweight his damn self. Then he ascended to heavyweight, and the problem was he didn't have enough power. I mean, he had the skill. He was a slick, you know, Philly shell, counterpuncher, you know, with great ability. And he was a slick fighter, you know, but like the punching power, again, it just wasn't there at heavyweight. He was able to hit his opponent, like, you know, his fights with Samuel Peter. You know, he just didn't have the firepower to beat those guys. But, you know, as defensive as he was, you know, look at him now. He took a lot of damage. And in his era, you know, I remember his fight with Jurov. I think that was light heavyweight. I mean, yeah, it was light heavyweight. And that was a great performance by James Toney, and he showed he showed his skill. But I think that was his proper weight. I don't think, like, him being a heavyweight, you know, he could compete because he was that good. He was that defensively sound because it's James Lights Out Toney. But it wasn't so much lights out when he got to heavyweight. He wasn't knocking guys out. He was just you know, pointing guys out. You know what I mean? He was you know, getting a decision. Not, you know, these fights would go. What? These fights would go like 12 rounds. And I know he took a real big dive in his career when he, you know, broke his leg. He had a bad leg injury, you know, but he came back, and I don't think he was really the same after that. But at heavyweight, he really wasn't that guy anyway. You know what I mean? He was good enough to know, hey, he was once upon a time a good fighter at a weight class, but not, you know, not supreme or superior at heavyweight. You see what I mean? So, but in the 90s, Usyk would have had he would have had problems like guys like Lennox Lewis, because Lennox Lewis would have been a guy that fought him, you know, because he would have decided, like, okay, let me take it to Usyk and see what Usyk can take, versus trying to outbox him, because Usyk is a slick guy, you know. But I think, to be fair, Usyk is a lot better than James Toney was at heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? Because Usyk did more in heavyweight than James Toney was able to do. You know what I'm saying? However, Usyk wasn't fighting Vladimir or Vitali or even Tyson or Holyfield or Samuel Peters, you know, or Lennox Lewis in another era, or, you know what I mean, Michael Moore, you know, or any of these guys like that, which those would have been good fights. I think Usyk would hold his own in those eras. But would he be able to do what he did with Anthony Joshua? And that's the question. You know what I'm saying? And I could say this. Anthony Joshua was a guy that was only once beaten and avenged his loss, and then he was beaten twice by Usyk. So I think it's unfair to say, oh, he's garbage. You know what I mean? Because you can't help the era you're in. Because here's the thing: if Tyson Fury should be ashamed of himself and Usyk is garbage, you're just shitting on the era. You're not really, you know, you're not even giving the era credit of being who they are. You're just really bigging up the era that you are in on top of other eras that we can't even ever see who's better than who. You know what I mean? That's just him just saying some shit out of the side of his mouth, which James Toney is entitled to do, because he does it all the damn time. Right? But James Toney, you know, A lot of people do that because I think a lot of people, they really support their era. You know what I mean? They support their era, and I think that's the way of keeping their era relevant by stating that their era is the toughest or their era was the best. But understand, he beat Holyfield, okay? But you beat Holyfield, dude, when Holyfield was way past his fucking prime. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, like, take that for what it is. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, oh, I used to look at you when I was a kid, dog. Well, there you go. You know what I'm saying? So you're saying that, hey, you know, Usyk or Fury or these guys, or Usyk wouldn't last in another person's era, but you're beating guys that were way past their prime. The question would be, James, would you have beat Holyfield in fucking 96 if you were heavyweight at that time? That's a bigger question, isn't it? There you go. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of James Lights Out Toney once again stating that Oleksandr Usyk is garbage. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace!